We have been together for about 2 years and living together for 1. She is not on the lease here. The property advised against applying together because her bad credit could have disqualified us. They recommended I apply alone, and she could be added as a tenant later. Once we moved in, they gave her some simple paperwork to sign so she could be added as a tenant. It sat on our kitchen counter for 6 months and then disappeared. I assumed it wasn't important to her and forgot about it. It is worth noting that she has consistently paid her half of the bills and done more than her fair share of housework. It has become increasingly apparent that we don't share the same goals, lifestyles, or values, and I decided that the relationship isn't for me. I broke the news to her 2 months ago and let her know that I'm not comfortable living with an ex. Because she isn't on the lease and can't afford this apartment, it made sense to me that she should be the one to move out. I suggested a time frame of 6 to 8 weeks to find a new place and offered a substantial amount of money to help with moving expenses. She contested by arguing that 6 to 8 weeks was not enough time. She is in very poor shape financially, and she does not have anyone else in her life who can help her in any meaningful way. Her family is completely estranged, and her only close friend is on the other side of the country. She asked if we could extend this time frame until after the holidays, to which I agreed. She can stay until the end of January. I'll even cover all of the bills from now on, so she has ample opportunity to save money while she looks for a new place to live. I am still offering cash to help when she moves. 2 months later, and she is coming up with every imaginable reason why she can't save money or find her own apartment. She doesn't make enough money. She has too many personal bills to pay. She can't get enough hours at work. Nobody will qualify her for housing with her bad credit. She has no family. She has no friends, and so on. She is asking me for another extension on the time period we agreed to. She's been angrily saying that this is my fault, and she's been suggesting that what I have offered already is not enough support for her to realistically make the move. She wants me to co-sign on a lease with her. No way. Or move out and give her this apartment, which she can't qualify for or afford. What? I understand that she's having trouble thinking clearly and controlling her emotions, but she hasn't changed her position on this for 2 months. I'm beginning to worry that she will not do anything to help herself between now and the end of January. At that point, I would have to file an order with the city to have her removed, which is a months-long process. I really don't want to throw her out on the street. I care about her, and I don't believe she deserves that. But I also need to look out for myself. This situation is already having a severe impact on my work performance and my mental health. I'm worried that if I go directly to the law, the resulting dispute is going to cost me my job or my sanity. But at the same time, I do not want to draw this out any longer than it needs to be. What is the appropriate amount of help for me to offer her? And how can I best ensure that she's able to leave here without anything unpleasant happening? Additionally, since I am getting a lot of comments calling her a leech or manipulator, that isn't the case. I have known this person for 2 solid years. She has not only paid her fair share of all of our living expenses up to this point, but she has also gone above and beyond in almost every way a partner could. Her recent behavior is obviously wrong, but it's reactionary. She is panicking right now because she doesn't feel empowered to live independently or make her own decisions, which is most likely a byproduct of her familial trauma and developmental disorder. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I read your post, your edit, and all your comments. You are allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. I'm not saying she is doing it intentionally, but she is not taking care of herself or her situation. So she is making you responsible for her problems. And that's unfair. There are several people in my family who are autistic, including my teenage stepdaughter. I'm going to talk about her for a moment. If she doesn't like the options, and if she doesn't think a situation is fair, she absolutely will not pick an option until she is left with no other choice. That's not uncommon for someone on the spectrum. We need to set firm and hard deadlines for her and tell her which option we will pick for her if she doesn't take control for herself. I like to give her forewarning because I always try to be as fair as possible. Your ex-roommate needs to be given firmer deadlines, and you need to start the eviction process now. Evictions take several months. If she's on the spectrum, then she likely also has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and executive functioning issues. She isn't going to address her problems until she has deadlines and knows the consequences of not acting. Comment 2. Saying this gently, but I think you're trying so hard to make things easy for her that you're prolonging the stress and anxiety. By the end of January, this adds up to 6 months. That's just too long. It's also not surprising it's impacting your mental health, but you may need a reminder that you and your mental well-being come first. This isn't selfish. It's smart. In her own place, there are people everywhere who can't afford this, so look elsewhere. I'm in Colorado, and room shares are very popular in all age groups. These are much cheaper, easier to get into, and they can be fun if done right. By that I mean you or she would meet the tenants, learn what they do, etc. It could also provide her with a network of her own. She may hate the idea, but this is where you need to be more firm. In a weird way, if you make all this too easy, it's a form of enabling her. It's sad she's struggling like this, but she's almost 30, and she does need to learn how to be independent. Group houses are always a good baby step in that direction. Now, for the update. A couple weeks after the deadline she asked for, and I'm still waiting for her to move out. I gave her until the end of January to find a place, and now here we are in mid-February. I really didn't think this would be a problem. I thought the deadline would be enough for her to find a place, but clearly that was too optimistic. The other day I got a text from her saying she needs more time. She says she's been looking for places but hasn't found anything good. I definitely agreed she needed more time when we first talked about her moving out, but now I just feel anxious. I was already anxious about her moving out of my place, but now I'm just stressed out. I decided to check some listings online myself to see what's available. Surprisingly, I find out she's been looking at places, but only in the less desirable neighborhoods. I get that she doesn't have a lot of money, but she can at least look at some of the better neighborhoods that are a bit more expensive. I confronted her about this during a casual dinner at home. I asked why she was only looking at bad neighborhoods, and she got really defensive. She insisted that moving is harder than it seems. I was just a little frustrated and agreed to help her look for places again. We spent several hours searching online together, but she showed little interest in any of the listings. I mentioned a specific apartment complex nearby that has vacancies, and she just brushed it off like it was nothing, saying it wasn't her style. It just made me feel like she wasn't even trying to find a place. The deadline is coming up, and I can feel the stress building up. It's hard to explain, but it's really affecting me. Anyway, one weekend I went to a family dinner with my parents and siblings, and I just really wanted to avoid talking about homes. My brother Jake and his wife Rachel brought up their recent house hunting, and I just felt like I wanted to disappear. I know that probably sounds dramatic, but I just didn't want to think about it. My sister Kate jokingly asked if I was moving in with someone new, and I just awkwardly laughed it off. After dinner, I stepped outside for some fresh air and saw my partner's car parked nearby. I was curious and walked over to get a better look. I noticed she was sitting in her car, talking on the phone. I couldn't hear the conversation, but she was very animated with her gestures. It made me feel uneasy, so I decided to go back inside without confronting her. The next day, I got a message from her asking for another week. She claims she found a place, but needs time to gather the funds to secure it. I grew suspicious and decided to do some digging. I found out she's been spending time with an old friend from college. I actually ran into this friend at a local coffee shop and decided to ask about her. This friend mentioned that they've been hanging out a lot lately, but she didn't know the details. I connected the dots and realized my partner was probably relying on this friend for support. I felt determined and decided to meet with her friend. We arranged to meet at a diner, and I learned so much more about my partner's situation. She admitted that my partner has been staying at her place regularly. I felt a mix of anger and disbelief as I learned more about the situation. I returned home and confronted my partner about her friend's involvement. She tried to downplay it, but I was done with the excuses. I set a firm final deadline for moving out and made it clear that I wouldn't back down. I told her I planned to change the locks the next day if she didn't comply. She stormed out, vowing to find a way to stay longer. I spent the night making arrangements for a locksmith. The next morning, the locksmith arrived and I felt relieved. I watched as the locks were changed, knowing this was a necessary step. I sent a final message to my partner, informing her of the changes. A week later, I got a message from her, but she was no longer asking for my help. She informed me that she has found a new place and will be moving in a few days. Honestly, I have no idea what's going to happen next. I guess she's really moving out, but I can't shake this feeling of anxiety. I don't want to be a jerk, but everything just feels so messy and complicated now. I mean, I thought all this would be done by now, and I'd be feeling relief, but I'm still on edge. I told my friends about it, and they say I should be happy she's going, but I don't know, man. Maybe I'll update if something major goes down, but right now I just want to chill and not think about all this. To answer a few questions, her old friend was not aware of the full extent of how my partner was taking advantage of me. The friend was simply being supportive, not realizing it was at my expense. I haven't seen her since changing the locks, and I don't plan to. Am I the idiot for refusing to be a placeholder while my ex chased his petite fantasy? We have been dating for 6 months. She, Haley, is friends with my boyfriend, Jared, but they are not very close. She has come up in our conversations a couple of times, but nothing too serious. She broke up with her boyfriend about 3 months ago, and I have noticed he has gotten distant, but I didn't think too much into it because he's a part-time model, and sometimes he travels and gets quiet. He is a great guy, very kind and very generous, and even when he's being distant, he's nice and sweet when we talk. Haley is gorgeous, and I would be lying if I said I was not intimidated by her, but I am, and I feel bad because she's genuinely a nice person. Friday night, Jared had his friends over at his house, got very drunk, and called me. I was glad that he thought about me in that moment, and we had a long conversation with him rambling on and me laughing. It was light and funny until I asked him how he met Haley. He asked me, "Do you also think she's adorable?" I don't know why I asked this, but I asked him if she was his type. His response was, "I love petite girls. Petite girls are so cute." She is 5 feet 2 inches, feminine and skinny. I am 5 feet 9 inches and a bit on the bigger side. My heart sank after this. I asked him why he was with me and not Haley. He said she was in a relationship and he couldn't bring himself to ask her out. He regrets being with me because now she's single and he can't ask her out because of me. I didn't want to hear more, so I told him I was going to bed. I have been crying since then. Yesterday I asked him about everything he told me and he claims he didn't mean it. He was drunk. He reassured me today, but I still feel hurt and I don't know what to believe. What would you do? To add, I would like to thank everyone. I may be unable to respond to everyone, but I have read everything, and everyone has said everything I knew, but had a hard time admitting to myself. I was going to follow the advice to break up with him before he does that to me, but unfortunately, he has just broken up with me. He called me asking to meet up, and I immediately knew. I told him I didn't want to meet up with him, and that he could say whatever he wanted on the phone, so I let him talk. His exact words were, "I have thought hard about it, and I know I have been unfair to you. I am really sorry. I really do have feelings for Haley, and lying to you made me feel terrible because you don't deserve it. I respected her relationship because I don't condone cheating, and I tried to move on. I really did. When you asked me out, I thought there was no harm in getting to know someone new. I stupidly thought I could move on, but I was wrong. I do find you attractive, and I was drawn to your creativity and humor. I thought I was moving on and fully planned on focusing on us, but I heard about her breakup, and I was back to square one. I know keeping you around is selfish. Hearing what I said while drunk must have hurt you. I really didn't want to say those words to you because I know it must have been hard to hear them. I shouldn't have started something with you before dealing with my feelings. Please find it in your heart to forgive me." I couldn't say or ask anything. All I could say was, "Oh, okay." He asked me if I wanted to say anything to him. I said I didn't, and I was going to ask a friend to pick up my stuff from his place. He said, "Sure, just let me know." I feel numb right now. It hurts a lot, but I will be fine. Thank you everyone for your support. I will update if anything significant comes up. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Nope. He definitely has a thing for Haley. He was drunk, which caused his filter to drop, and he told you how he really feels about her. You deserve so much better than this. Dump him and find a man who isn't using you as a placeholder for the woman he truly wants to be with. Comment 2. The alcohol didn't put those thoughts in his head. It just removed the inhibitions that kept them from coming out of his mouth. In my opinion, you will have a very hard time forgetting that, and it will fester as insecurities about him and her. If I were in your shoes, I would cut my losses. Now, for the update. 2 weeks after the breakup, I moved into my own apartment. Honestly, I was surprised I even managed to find a place. The market in my city is just crazy, and I thought I'd be living in my car for the next few months. But no, I found this cute little one-bedroom on the 3rd floor with a view of the dumpster behind the building. So, a real winner here. But hey, it's mine. I don't have to share a bathroom with anyone, and I can walk around in my underwear without worrying about someone judging me. I spent the first few days unpacking boxes and organizing my space. I put off the whole getting to know your neighbors thing as long as I could because, honestly, I just wanted to be a hermit. I had a million boxes to unpack, and I didn't want to explain to anyone why my eyes were puffy and red all the time. Oh, look, she's been crying. So original. Then one evening, I got this text from Jared asking to meet up to talk. I stared at that message longer than I'd like to admit. I just couldn't bring myself to reply. I ignored the message. It felt like the best way to keep my distance, honestly. I didn't want to hear more about his new relationship with Haley or whatever. I was done with that chapter. A few days later, I saw Haley post a picture on social media with Jared at a local festival. The caption mentioned having a great time with old friends. Old friends, my butt. They were just friends like a week ago. It stung a bit, but I tried to ignore it. I knew I couldn't go down that rabbit hole of comparing my life to theirs. So I decided to focus on myself. I signed up for a painting class because, why not? I figured it would be a fun way to meet new people, and I could pretend I was Van Gogh or something. During the class, I met a few new people and began to build a small circle. No one asked me about my love life, which was a relief. One weekend, my new friends and I went out for drinks. We were at this bar just having a good time, and out of nowhere, I ran into Jared and Haley together. Like, what are the odds? Jared looked surprised to see me, and Haley flashed this big smile. It was like a scene out of a rom-com, but not in a good way. I just turned to my friends and tried to enjoy the night. The next morning, I got a message from Jared apologizing for the awkward encounter. I kept my response short, civil, but distant. I was not about to pour my heart out to him over text. A few days later, my friend invited me to a birthday party for a mutual acquaintance. At the party, I found out that Jared and Haley were now officially dating. Someone mentioned that they'd been together for a few weeks already. I just smiled and tried to act like I was fine with it. Instead, I focused on having fun with my friends. I wasn't going to let his new relationship ruin my night. Later, I overheard a conversation at the party about Jared's past relationships. The comments about how he always falls for the pretty girls caught my attention. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Pretty girls, huh? Real deep. While outside, I bumped into another friend who asked how I'd been doing. The friend mentioned that Jared had a reputation for being fickle. I didn't know if I should be relieved or upset. A week later, I got a call from my mom asking about my new life. During the call, my mom hinted at wanting to meet Haley, not knowing the situation. I just brushed it off, saying they hadn't met yet. I knew I had to tell her about the breakup eventually, but I wasn't ready for that conversation. So, I decided to tell her about the breakup. The conversation turned awkward, with my mom trying to encourage reconciliation. She said something about how it could still work out, and I just wanted to scream. I wasn't going to scream at my mom, though. A few days later, I got a text from Jared asking if we could clear the air. I declined, stating that I preferred to keep things as they are. Jared replied, expressing disappointment but understanding my decision. I could almost hear his sad puppy dog eyes through the text. A few weeks passed and I focused on my new painting hobby. I decided to showcase my artwork at a local gallery event. I was so nervous but excited to show off my work. On the day of the event, I saw Haley and Jared attending together. I took a deep breath, walked up to them, and introduced myself confidently. I wished them well and walked away. No drama, no tears, just me being awesome. The update ends with me getting ready for my next art class, looking forward to new experiences. I can't believe how much I've grown since all this drama started. I'm actually excited about my new art class and just living my life. Yeah, I still have my moments, but overall, I'm feeling pretty good. I just want to say a huge thanks to everyone for being so supportive. You've all helped me see that I deserve better and that I'm not just sitting here waiting around for someone to choose me. I'm doing my own thing and I couldn't be happier. So cheers to all of us for moving on and finding our happiness. Take care. Edit. I appreciate the support everyone has given. A few have asked about my friends. The ones I met through my ex, we cut ties. It just felt right to distance myself. I still have mutual friends from before, and they have been wonderful. Many people have asked about my paintings. I'm not a pro yet, but I love it. I've made progress and even sold a few pieces. People have asked about my future. I'm focusing on me for now. No dating plans, but I'm open to it later. Am I the idiot for calling out my son's in-laws for manipulating him and his wife into ignoring our family? My son, who is 23 years old, joined the Marine Corps immediately following graduation and is stationed 28 hours away. He married his high school girlfriend, who is 21 years old, as soon as he was stationed. They have been together for 4 years. We had a good relationship. His father was not in the picture due to substance addiction. So it has always been me, my children, and his siblings, with help from his paternal grandmother and my current husband. His wife and I initially had a great relationship. I paid for her to attend his boot camp graduation during Infection 19 and only 2 attendees were allowed. She often confided about problems at home, specifically her father's alcoholism and her mother being extremely manipulative. Her 3 other siblings went no contact. I helped her with school. We had girl dates, etc. When they decided to marry, I helped furnish their new home. Here's where things went downhill. They married at the courthouse in his state, and only her parents attended. She graduated from paramedic school, and we were not invited. When she moved to where he is stationed, her mother made her feel bad for the new furniture I purchased for them. They picked it out. They took nothing but his clothes and threw his bed away. My son had no idea this happened until I called him after the U-Haul left. And he was appropriately upset that they only took things from her mother's storage unit. His wife told me that her mother was crying because they were only taking things that I had bought them. They were taking personal items from her mother, but no furniture. My son dropped it, and I gave everything to my oldest son. I took them on multiple trips, and they stayed in their room most of those trips. And contact with my son slowly became non-existent, only when she was not around. They come to town once a year. She comes 2 weeks ahead of him, and he comes the 3rd week. We plan family activities, but they stay with her family, and we see him very little. This last 2 weeks, they have been in town. He saw us for 5 hours total. He told me she would be busy with her sister's wedding, and he was staying with us the entire week. But that hasn't happened, and everyone on my side, and his father's side, is very hurt. We threw a huge party for him, and he left early because her father made plans with him the same day. I have reached out the past 2 days, but he is ignoring me. For context, he has 4 siblings from me and 2 from his father. His father tragically ended his life last year and was comatose for several days. I left a work trip to be at his bedside, waiting for my child to arrive to say his goodbyes. I covered all funeral expenses and wrote his eulogy. He never visited his paternal grandmother or young siblings after the funeral before he went home. We all feel unappreciated and pushed aside for his new family. He has always wanted to become career military and has now advised that he will not re-enlist because his wife misses her parents. They are buying a place big enough for her parents to live with them in a year. This came from left field, and everyone is shocked. His response is, "Happy wife, happy life." I know it sounds like I'm blaming her and her family, and maybe I am, but I also understand that he is an adult as well. How do I let him know that we are hurting? Now for an update. He just called. He wants to go bowling. His wife is having a girls' date with her sister. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I appreciate everyone who offered their point of view and advice. I hope I responded to everyone individually, but I wanted you all to know that this has helped me get some things off my chest, while also providing an opportunity for introspection as to how my actions affect our relationship. I raised my children to be independent and self-sufficient, but I never really explored how these traits would affect me as a parent. Also, please excuse typos. I'm typing on mobile with a broken finger. Comment 2. Listen, your problem isn't with your daughter-in-law, it's with your son. So many times we see mothers-in-law blame their relationships with their sons on their daughters-in-law. Your daughter-in-law's relationship with her parents is between them, and frankly, it sounds toxic and manipulative, but that's for her to work out. You should focus on maintaining a positive relationship with your son. Now for the update. After my last post, my son and I went bowling a couple of days later. I was kind of nervous, but I wanted to see if we could connect, even just a little. We went to this bowling alley that's super popular, especially on weekends. It was packed with people, families, friends, you name it. Honestly, it was kind of chaotic, and I had a hard time hearing him half the time. We got our shoes and balls, and I think I even joked about how he could probably lift a heavier ball now that he's in the Marines. He smiled, but I noticed he seemed a little distracted. He kept checking his phone. I knew he was busy with military stuff, but still. We started playing, and I got lucky with a strike on my first turn. We shared some laughs, and for a second, it felt like old times. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was more interested in whatever was happening on his phone than in the game. He kept glancing at the door, too, like he was waiting for someone to show up. After our first game, he said he had to go pick something up from a friend's house and wanted to leave early. It felt off, but I didn't want to push it. I asked if his wife was okay, and he just brushed it off, saying she was having a girls' night. Sure, that's fine. The next day, I got a text from him about how much fun he had bowling. Not a lot of detail, but hey, I'll take it. I was at the grocery store later and heard my sister talking to a friend about a family gathering where my daughter-in-law's parents were really critical of my son. It caught my attention because they hadn't mentioned anything like that while we were bowling. You'd think they would have, right? I decided to check out my son's social media later that day. I know some people think it's a bit much to look at social media to find out what's going on in your kid's life, but I had to see for myself. So I went on his Instagram and found some pictures of him and his wife at a family dinner with her parents. The one that really got me was a shot of him looking super uncomfortable next to his father-in-law. He had that look on his face like he wanted to be anywhere else. I felt bad for him. I texted him about the pictures, saying they looked nice and all, and he said it was a bit awkward but went along with it. I asked if we could do a family dinner soon, and he agreed, but mentioned his wife had plans with her family again. The night of the dinner, he came over late and looked flustered. I had made his favorite meal, but he barely touched it. He said he wasn't hungry. I thought it was a little odd, but okay. We started eating, and I brought up his plans for the future and how we could support him. He changed the subject to how his wife's family was coming to visit, which was already on my mind. He snapped at me, saying I didn't know how hard it was to balance both families. That really hurt. I told him I was trying to help, and he just stormed out, leaving an unfinished dinner on the table. I felt so defeated. The next day, I decided I couldn't just sit around and wait for him to reach out. I needed to take action. So I went to a local community center to sign up for a class I've always wanted to join. It felt good to do something for myself. While I was there, I ran into my daughter-in-law's aunt. She was surprised to see me, and we started chatting. We talked about family dynamics, and she shared some insights that really hit home. She mentioned how my daughter-in-law felt pressured to please her parents all the time. That made me think. I wanted to help my son and daughter-in-law find a balance between both families, so I decided to throw a family barbecue. I thought it would be a good way to bring everyone together and talk things out. I sent out invitations to my son and his wife, as well as my family. I was worried about how my daughter-in-law's family would react, but I took a leap of faith. On the day of the barbecue, my son and his wife came over, but they looked a bit tense. It was noticeable. We all gathered outside in the backyard, and I could tell my daughter-in-law's family was on edge. I tried to keep things light and fun, but it was hard. During the barbecue, my daughter-in-law's mother made a passive-aggressive comment, and I couldn't just let it slide. I stood up and called out the tension directly. It shocked everyone, and the atmosphere shifted. Her family looked like they were caught off guard. I suggested we all sit down for a family meeting to work things out, and to my surprise, they agreed. We scheduled the meeting for the following weekend. I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Edit: the family meeting was intense but necessary. My son and daughter-in-law expressed their frustrations, and we all listened. Her parents admitted to putting pressure on them, which was a big step. We discussed boundaries and the importance of balancing both families. It wasn't easy, but we came up with a plan to alternate holidays and family gatherings. After the meeting, my son thanked me for facilitating it. He mentioned they would be moving to a new place soon, which surprised me. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.